we've heard from Jerry Jones nearly every day regarding contracts, am I right? But we're finally hearing from the player rather than the owner. Here's Dak Prescott being asked about not having a long-term deal done now.
You don't need a deal done before the season.
I don't need no.
Would you like it done before the season?
I think it says a lot if it is or if it isn't. But however, doesn't really matter to me, to be honest with you.
What does it say if it isn't?
Just how people feel.
How do you feel about Jerry said the negotiation isn't about your merit as the Cowboys quarterback, but more about their cap situation? What do you take from that when he says, it's not really about what you're doing?
Yeah, I understand that. That's the business and the nature of this game that we play. I stopped, honestly, listening to things that he says to the media a long time ago. So it doesn't really hold weight with me.
Okay, it was nice to finally hear from Dak Prescott there, and I feel like he said a lot. Mike T, great to have you with us. Bart, I'll kick it off with you. Would Dak be justified if he feels wronged by Jerry?
No, not at all, because he has to take some accountability for what he's done in the postseason. Jerry Jones, the general manager, has done an amazing job in bringing in talent to win, right? And it's too often that we see the Dallas Cowboys host a playoff game. We see a team that's supposed to be the underdog come in and have a day. Jordan Love, we had questions about who he was as a player. 9-17, the 9-win team comes in and embarrasses you in front of everybody. And I know it's not all about Dak Prescott, but he's come up small against the competition. Now, Jerry Jones has already paid him $160 million, right? So nobody feels wrong. It's not personal. It's business. And Jerry Jones has to ask himself, is it good business for me to give a quarterback $60 million, maybe 13 or 14, 15% of our salary cap, and we fall up short again? Because guess what? This is probably the best team I can put around him for the next couple of years, right? The reason why we praise Patrick Mahomes is because he continues to lose players, but he makes up for them. Mike Tannenbaum says it all the time, force multiplier. How much of a force multiplier is Dak Prescott? Because when you pay him that contract, and Michael Parsons' contract is there, you're going to have to say goodbye to Zach Martin. You're going to have to say goodbye to DeMarcus Lawrence. So if you couldn't win any playoff games with those players, how are you going to win them without them? So Dak Prescott, cry me a river. Listen, Jerry Jones will write the fattest check in history if you take this team to the Super Bowl. And I like the fact that Jerry Jones has made it uncomfortable and gave himself an out. But he painted himself into this corner. So at this point, it's no benefit to pay him early. Let me see what happens.
You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
We all have to learn
said.
that in life, all in uncomfortable situations at times. Mike T, your thoughts?
I think Dak shouldn't feel wrong. He should feel unencumbered. And I think what's fascinating, guys, is what we saw yesterday is just really the precipice of something really interesting, which is he's talking to Mark Davis, the owner of the Raiders, John Mara, the owner of the Giants. He's saying, hey, I am a free agent. I cannot be franchised. And as Troy Aikman said, every day that goes by, it's more likely that he's a former Cowboy than he is going to be an extended Cowboy. And he has all the leverage here, which is very unusual because Jerry Jones, who's a Hall of Fame businessman, walks around this planet with all the leverage in 99.9% of the time. When they didn't draft a quarterback in this year's draft, guys, they don't have the leverage. Dak Prescott does. And what we saw Dak yesterday was somebody that was speaking with leverage, with freedom, and totally unencumbered. He's the one that holds the cards, not Jerry Jones.
I feel like he handled it perfectly. What does it say? If someone signs you to a long-term deal or if they don't, exactly how they feel about you. And he's right. Stephen A?
Well, he handled it perfectly, but that don't make him right. The reality is that he hasn't produced when it counts most. And so when you have that, when you have to take that into consideration, you can't just ask yourself, how is the organization treating me? How are the honchos treating me? Without looking in the mirror and taking some accountability for what you haven't achieved, despite the leverage you have. He clearly has the leverage. He can't be franchise tag. He can't be traded. No trade clause, no franchise tag clause in there. We get that part, and that gives him all the leverage in the world. But just because you know you have all the leverage in the world doesn't mean that you get to negate looking yourself in the mirror and asking yourself, did you truly earn it with a level of production? Certainly not about comparable to other dudes getting money, because we see Trevor Lawrence getting money. We've seen Deshaun Watson getting money. Joe Burrow, even though he's been better, he's getting his money, et cetera, et cetera. But you're still asking yourself that question. And I think that when you talk about Dak Prescott, he's number one. Let's give him credit where credit is due. we're not accustomed to seeing Dak Prescott and associating him with number one. But he is number one in something this year. You know what that is, Molly, at this particular moment?
Tell me.
Since Deshaun Watson restructured his deal, Dak Prescott is now number one in terms of highest salary cap hit for the season on a team at $55.1 million cap hit against the Dallas Cowboys. So he's number one in that category. Let's look at his production over the months. In his career, since he arrived in the National Football League in 2016, his record in September is 14-10. In October, it's 17-8. In November, it's 19-12. In December, it's 21-8. So that should tell you something. So hold on, Mike T. So all I'm going to say is this. Again, he doesn't have, you got to look himself in the mirror. However, there is something to be said about how you treat your own. I know I pay attention to that all the time. When you're the honcho and you have somebody that you respect and has produced for you in some way, especially if they're number one or number two or whatever, if they're high-end producers, in Dak Prescott's case, that's during the regular season, then how you treat them matters. It ain't just about the bottom line. It's about the process. And if the process is tainted because words are said and behaviors are exhibited that one deems insulting, then that's something somebody is supposed to remember, especially when they have options like Dak Prescott has.
So, Steven, let me just push back on something. If the four of us were running the Dallas Cowboys, part of the analysis is everything you just laid out beautifully, which is he's been a good quarterback, and we could quibble. Is he 6? Is he 10? Is he 11?
Yeah.
He's been a really good quarterback. If the four of us were running the Cowboys, here are the two questions I'd be asking you guys. Who are we going to get, and how much is that player going to cost, either from a cap standpoint or from a draft standpoint? So just when you let somebody...
Could you add one question?
Wait.
Could you add one question?
What about the guy that was in Colorado playing last night? How about Shedeur Sanders?
That's what I said on Get Up. There's a better chance that Shedeur Sanders is going to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys next year than Dak Prescott in terms of where we're heading. Because if Dallas is picking somewhere between 15 and 20, they could package multiple first-round picks and a young player to move up to get Shedeur Sanders. So to me,
but you have to get somebody to agree, and who's to say they're going to do it? Who's to say they don't see the same potential that Dallas sees and all of us see in Shedeur Sanders, and they're not willing to make such a deal?
Well, it could be a team like the Patriots that will be in the top 5. They have a quarterback and nothing else.
That was the other one I threw out. Because I know you mentioned the Giants, and we had talked about this the other day with Stephen A. and Kimberly and I, and I had said the Patriots, and no one's really had, but the Giants as well, and someone threw out the Steelers too.
But here's the thing though, like when you talk about like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Like if you're Dak Prescott, you've had a front row seat to the dysfunction, which is the offensive line for the New York Football Giants. You want to run over to that? Or do you want to run over to the Raiders where you don't know what's going on?
Yeah, Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers.
Pierce, right? Devontae Adams, how long are you going to be there if you're signing? You're going to be there longer than Devontae Adams. So do you want to go over there to that organization? You've won 12 games. You've had success. Sometimes it may be better to take a little less. You know, and I'm not saying take less, like don't take $55 million, but I'm saying you don't have to set the bar. Like, you give me $1 more than Joe Burrow got. You don't have to go get $60 million, which he'll qualify for, because going over there, we may never hear from Dak Prescott again. So, you know, sometimes you have to respect and understand that it's best where you are. And like,
so you think, except being slightly disrespected and your owner potentially not being all in because he has a better shot of winning a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys than going to the New York Giants or the Steelers or the Raiders?
What's disrespected by getting paid $160 million? He has the highest cap hit for a reason because they paid him his money. Now, right now, was Joe Flacco disrespected because the Ravens didn't pay him? What did he do? He went up and he showed. We talk about playing underneath pressure. And Dak Prescott hasn't played under pressure in 4 years. He's got his money. He got rewarded. Let me see him go win a Super Bowl.
If you're Jerry,
I need more for my money.
If you're Jerry, what would you do?
Listen,
would you draft a quarterback?
No, I'm going to see how this season plays out.
But be careful what you wish for, because it could be Derek Carr. You don't know what you're going to wind up with.
I'm going to see how this season plays out. If the season plays out, you get me more than 2 playoff wins, you get me an NFC championship, here's your money. If not, then we got to have a discussion.
I'm not going to do that.
Maybe I don't give it as much. But listen, next year, the Atlanta Falcons may be taking calls for Kirk Cousins. I'd rather have Kirk Cousins for $36 million and be able to keep Zach Martin, be able to keep DeMarcus Lawrence, and also be able to pay Michael Parsons and try and win with Kirk Cousins with a great team around him than play Dak Prescott, because I've seen that movie. So if I can't win with this great team Why am I going to give you $60 million, which is going to inhibit me from being able to keep the good players I have around you?
All right, I have
like
a
you told me
follow-up
before,
for you, but I
if
want
you
to let
want
Stephen
money,
A. get in.
Tannenbaum's told me before. When you
I know
go
one
get
thing,
when I
Bart.
give you this money,
I
Bart,
know one
I'm
thing, Bart. You better stop taking so damn long with your soliloquies, and we ain't got no time to get back at you with what you're saying because I disagree with you.
You're putting
you
it all-
understand?
you're
I'm
putting it
not
all
waiting
on
till no
Dak.
NFC champ. I'm not waiting till no NFC championship game. I'm gonna make them sweat, but not that damn much because again, the closer you get to an end, the more you get to test free agency because you have that option. I'm not going that far if I'm Jerry Jones. I'm going to wait a few weeks. Let me see what he does during the regular season. And then if he's
always
nosediving,
does
that
that.
would be different. Now, I'm just saying, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. But in the end, I'm just looking at Dak and I'm saying, you got to look yourself in the mirror. You got to ask yourself the question what you've done. And Mike T, coming back to you, I want to add a third question to that mix. You talked about the two questions we should ask ourselves, or if we're the organization and we're dealing with that. Well, here's the third question. Is there a quarterback out there that I can get that I can think will win me 2 playoff games over 8 years?
No,
Why can't I ask that question? Why can't I ask that question?
Stephen, that is totally fair. However, we've been in a lot of situations watching the NFL where it gets worse because here's where I think Dallas made a fundamental strategic mistake, guys. In this year's draft, they didn't draft a quarterback, so now they have no options. And if Dak graduates, they could get somebody better who has more playoff success. But it could go the other way, and now you're in quarterback purgatory, and that's not a good place to be.
But the backup quarterback in Cincinnati did a damn good job when Joe Burrow went like 4-3 over the last 7 games, if I remember correctly. I saw us talking about Cooper Rush, and he did go 5-1. Now, that doesn't mean he's better than Dak Prescott. We know better than that.
Yeah, but
we
he
know
held
that
it
Dak
down.
deserves to be the quarterback, but he did hold it down. So if you have other pieces, and most importantly, Mike T, you of all people know this, if you have the flexibility to add additional pieces around a quarterback that ain't on Dak Prescott's level, maybe a little bit below, but you buffer the other spots on the roster. Is that not something worth entertaining when you got a quarterback that's won 2 playoff victories in 8 years?
Tell me if I'm being too soft here.
Okay.
With Dak Prescott, how much of their lack of playoff success is actually on the quarterback? Do you feel like there's other quarterbacks in the league that could have stepped in and won more playoff games with the talent, with the coach, with all the pieces?
Yes, they have a championship caliber. They got 2 of the best pass rushers. They had a good line around him. They don't have the running backs that they used to have, but they've always had a talented roster. That's why they've been 12-5 for the last 3 seasons. He's come up short when the lights are the brightest, and you can see it in his face. When you watch that playoff game last year when Green Bay came in there, him and CeeDee Lamb looked shell-shocked. That wasn't one of his best performances, right? So, he's not a force multiplier. And
So you think he's not clutch and he's not made for those big moments? Because Stephen A. has alluded to the fact that he looks shaky, he looks scared.
That star gets heavy. And listen, who did they find when they lost Tony Romo? Oh, that's right. That would be Dak Prescott. This is an organization that has developed young quarterbacks that wasn't highly touted. So they can give themselves some options. Why am I giving this man $60 million and I may end up getting sent home in the first round if we make the playoffs this year? Why am I giving him $60 million? How is that going to make me a better team? Because now I got to go out and try and build and draft well around him, which they've already done.
Because your options, again, if you're drafting somewhere
But at least I have options. You have no options if you pay him $60 million. You stuck to him.
No, you were second in the MVP. You led the league in scoring. They were terrible.
And Brock Purdy got more playoff wins than you.
Right. They were terrible in the playoffs last year, but that was a team loss on both sides of the ball. That wasn't just Dak
What happened the year before that?
Yeah, they lost.
And the year before that?
That was on Mike
And the year before that? I feel like I'm on an episode of Groundhog Day.
What quarterbacks could step in and have won in that situation? Name some beyond the Joe Burrows and the Patrick Mahomes.
And the Jordan Loves?
Yeah.
And the Brock Purdys?
Yeah.
And the Kirk Cousins?
Respectfully,
Mark Sanchez
y'all. Hold on, Bart. Hold on.
Mark Sanchez. We just dug deep.
Respectfully, that ain't the issue. The issue is that at the end of the day, we are living in a hard cap world that is the National Football League. And in terms of current quarterbacks, Dak Prescott is the 6th highest paid quarterback in the history of the National Football League. And the brother can't win come playoff time. That's the story. At some point in time, you have to ask yourself the question, okay, if I'm sitting in front of Dak Prescott and I'm interviewing him, and I'm not trolling, not playing games or anything like that, my brother, you are a big-time quarterback during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
This is the National Football League. You know what this is about. It's about the postseason. And when it comes to the postseason, not only have you not stepped up, it's been 4 consecutive years you haven't done so. And so as a result of that, what do you say when people look at you and ask the question, if you're worthy? We know the market, it says the market, and you're going to get your money. But are you worth it to cost them whatever else they can do, as opposed to going in a different direction with somebody that may be less quality, but might still manage to do what you do come playoff time? That is a legitimate question.
Do you think it's being the Dallas Cowboy that's getting to him? That everybody's talking about them, they're America's team, and it's that's adding the extra pressure, or it's just the playoffs period?
Molly, I think it's more human nature. Like, I've earned the right to be a free agent, and you know what? Like, I see other people get rewarded, like Trevor Lawrence or Tua or all these other quarterbacks that haven't had postseason success. So maybe I could go
Didn't
someplace.
Trevor Lawrence come back from 28 points down to win a playoff game?
One playoff game.
Doesn't Daniel Jones have a playoff win?
One.
Isn't Dak Prescott been in the league longer than Daniel Jones?
Right, but my point
Everyone
is...
outside of Tua, every one of those dudes, Jared Goff took the team to the Super Bowl.
To answer Molly's question, if I'm Dak, I've earned the right to say, you know what? Like, maybe there's a better place, like Vegas, where there are live.
Good luck. How many quarterbacks have had success
Well, let me say this.
in Las Vegas?
We don't even have to go there, guys. We don't even have to go there, guys. Here's the reality. The star matters. That pub, that pressure cooker matters. I personally think Dak Prescott's chances of winning a Super Bowl would increase exponentially with someone other than the Cowboys. I do believe the bright lights, the allure, the star, you understand what I'm saying, the cheerleaders, the billion-dollar playpen that they play in, the nationally televised stuff, Cowboy Nation everywhere. I do believe that's a bit much for him to handle come playoff time. I really do. I think if he were somewhere else, I think he'd look better. I think if he wasn't on the same microscope, I think he'd be better. There are certain dudes, and you guys know this. Mike T, don't tell me. I know the answer. So Bart, we ain't asking you this because we know where you stand. Mike T, you trying to tell me that when you, and I know you and your analytics, and I know how much you know about this game as an executive, you trying to tell me, Mike T, you don't pay any attention whatsoever to cats in pressurized situations whose palms get a little bit sweaty, whose backsides get a little bit tighter, who get a little bit nervous and a little bit more shaky. You as an executive, when you watching that film, you don't notice that?
Of course we do. And despite that, we paid Bart because we thought he brought so many other things to the table.
Yeah.
Damn it, you got your money's worth. We went to 2 AFC championships.
Here's what Stephen
Molly,
A. just
honestly, go ahead, Mike T, go.
Yeah, Stephen A., what you just laid out to me is so fascinating because when Dak's head hits the pillow, maybe he believes what you just said, or maybe he just says, hey, it's time. But the fact that he can't be franchised, he can't be traded, we've never seen a starting quarterback on this stage at this level. Well, he's better than Kirk Cousins that really has all the leverage and has the option.
According to Bart, he's not better than Kirk Cousins. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll take Kirk Cousins 36.
Let me answer this about what Molly said. If I'm Dak Prescott, although I think he will win elsewhere rather than in Dallas, the man in me stays. Because if I leave, I'll always know I ran away to achieve what I was after instead of tackling the biggest challenge of my life mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, etc., and overcoming the doldrums. If the city of Dallas and Cowboy fans everywhere have had to deal with 8 years of futility come January, then you got some making up to do, and I'm going to do it. That's just me. But I understand, Molly, what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you about how it might be better, but the man in me ain't running.